Please welcome to the stage the entire cast of Broadway's Come From Away.
On the northeast tip of North America, on an island called Newfoundland, there's an airport. It used to be one of the biggest airports in the world, and next to it is a town called Gander. Welcome to the Rock if you come from away. You probably understand about a half of what we say. They say no man's an island, but an island makes a man, especially when one comes from one like Newfoundland. Welcome to the Rock.
That morning I'm in the classroom. It's our first day back and the school buses are on strike, so I'm covering for Annette, who's running late.
Sorry, Beulah. How's the kids?
Not exactly thrilled to be inside on such a gorgeous day, so I told them we'd only have a half day this morning, and they were quite pleased. Until I told them we'd have the other half in the afternoon.
Welcome to the wildest weather that you've ever heard of,
Where everyone is nicer, but it's never nice above.
Welcome to the farthest place you'll get from Disneyland.
Fish and chips and shipwrecks.
This is Newfoundland.
Welcome to the Rock.
An islander, I am an islander. I'm an islander, I am an islander. I'm an islander, I am an islander. I'm an islander, I am an islander.
That morning, I'm in my car. The kids cross Airport Boulevard to get to school, and that time of day, people are in a little bit of a rush to get to work and stuff. So normally I sit there and run my radar. And if they're speeding, I'll stop them and write out a warning ticket. I'll write STFD. Slow the fuck down.
Welcome to the land where the winter's trying to kill us, and we said,
We will not be killed. Welcome to the land where the water's trying to drown us, and we said, We will not be drowned.
welcome to the land where we lost our loved ones, and we said,
We will still go on. Welcome to the land where the wind tried to blow, and we said no.
That morning, I dropped my kids off at school and head to the SPCA, where I'm greeted by my other kids, all barking and meowing for breakfast and a belly rub. Not that I'm complaining, I loves them. But by the time feeding is done, I got to get back to pick up my human kids. So I take just 1 second for myself, and I'm sitting in my car.
I'm in the staff room.
I'm in the library, and I turn on the radio.
You are here at the start of a moment on the edge of the world where the river meets the sea. Here on the edge of the Atlantic, on an island in between there and here.
I'm running my radar when Bonnie comes by. She pulls up and she is waving at me like mad. So I roll down my window and she says,
Let's turn on the radio.
Slow it down, Bonnie.
Jesus H. Turn on your radio.
Where our story starts,
it's my first day at the station.
where we'll end the night,
I'm getting coffee for the picket line.
where we know by heart
5 minutes till my smoke break.
every single flight.
I'm off to work at the airport.
Welcome to the fog, welcome to the trees, to the ocean and the sky and whatever's in between. To the ones who've left, you're never truly gone. A candle's in the window and the kettle's always on. When the sun is coming up and the world is coming short, if you're hoping for a harbor, then you'll find an open door. In the winter, from the water through whatever's in the way, to the ones who have come from away. We say, welcome to the, 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 welcome to the Rock.
Transition. All right, that was amazing. Give me another round of applause. That was awesome. So, full disclosure, this is the largest cast we've ever had on this stage. So, excuse all the chairs. It's quite impressive. Thanks to the tech crew. So, the Welcome to the Rock was the opening for that song. What is the Rock?
The Rock is Newfoundland.
Right.
Newfoundland is an island province on the northeast tip of North America in Canada. And in 2001, they welcomed a number of planes and passengers because all the planes were diverted when the U.S. airspace was closed.
Right. Okay. So I want to get into the timeline about this first. But the four of you who just joined us after the performance, go down the line here and introduce yourselves and what you do.
So I'm David Hein. I'm one of the writers.
I'm Irene Sankoff. I'm the other writer.
I'm Ian Eisendrath. I'm the music supervisor, arranger, and conductor.
I'm Kelly Devine. I'm the choreographer.
Wonderful. Okay, so the timeline of September 11th. 9:26 FAA closes airspace, 12 p.m. 18 planes, Gander, the city this happens in, was told 18 planes will land. And then by 12:15, 13 additional planes had landed, and then at the end of it all, it was 38 planes total, carrying almost 7,000 people came into a town that only had 10,000 people in it to begin with. And they weren't even allowed to leave the plane for hours, right?
Yeah.
So getting into that, as the writers, I think this all begins with the two of you. Why? Where did you find this story, and why did you write it?
It was a story that was suggested to us by a friend of ours, and we applied to get a grant to go out to see what was happening on the 10th anniversary of September 11th, because a lot of the people who had been stranded there 10 years before were going to return, because 10 years later they would still felt so much gratitude and so much respect for the people who had taken them in and had become lifelong friends. So we thought, okay, there's going to be all these ceremonies happening. We need to be there and just find out why this place means so much to these people and that they would come back 10 years later.
Yeah. So we traveled out there. Like Irene said, we had a grant, but we actually got to stay a little bit longer to extend it because the people were there like, don't spend money on hotel, come stay with us, here's the keys, just feed the cats.
So they still extended the hospitality all the time.
Yeah, we saw the same generosity out there, and we ended up interviewing everyone we possibly could for hours at a time, and we just came back with, you mentioned 7,000 people on the plane, and there was around 9,000 people in the town. We came back with like 16,000 stories, and we wanted to tell all of them, and tried to do that in a 100-minute musical with 12 actors.
Well, okay, so I want to take a step back, though. The title, Come From Away, what is a Come From Away?
Come From Away is someone who's not from Newfoundland. So if you're not born on the Rock, then you're considered a Come From Away.
And is it like in New Yorker where after 10 years and you get angry enough, you become a New Yorker?
I don't think so. I think you could have lived on the Rock longer than if you had actually, than you've lived anywhere else, and you're still a Come From Away. Although apparently David and I are now,
Yeah.
Honorary.
There's a ceremony that happens in the show called a screech-in where you ostensibly become an honorary Newfoundlander, and that's happened to us 3 times. You have to kiss a fish, you have to drink some drinks.
So that's real?
It's real.
Oh, yeah.
It's real.
Oh, wow.
So it's happened to us 3 times, and
You've kissed 3 fish.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, in the ceremony. But at the end of that, we were talking to one of the Newfoundlanders that we based the show on, and I was saying, so we've been screeched in already. We've been screeched in 3 times. We're Newfoundlanders. He's like, no, you're a mainlander still. I was like, we wrote a show about you.
So did the skeptics, I guess, when you were trying to put this together, and were there people who were saying, like, you guys are insane to make a musical, to write music or write a story about this and try to get it on stage? I mean, was there any adversity there?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, starting right in Newfoundland, and we were getting a tour of the airport, and the guy's like, so you're going to write a musical about making people sandwiches? Good luck with that.
Yeah, and then beyond that, I mean, obviously, it's set against the backdrop of what happened here in New York on 9/11, and we've been very clear that it's not a 9/11 story; it's a 9/12 story. It's about the way this community responded to it, but also we had a lot of sensitivity to that. We were living here on 9/11. My cousin was in the towers, but fortunately got out. But there was a lot of what happened in Newfoundland that resonated with us in terms of, we lived up at around 122nd and Broadway at this residence for international graduate students. So people from 110 countries from around the world, all waiting for news, all waiting for them to return, and supporting each other as a community. So there's something about this international community coming together to support each other that was familiar to us. But also in the time after 9/11 in New York, it felt like there was the boundaries broke down between people. You could reach out to anyone and say, "Are you okay? How are you doing?" And that's what happened in Newfoundland. I think that's what happened internationally in many cities. And it's something that what happened in Newfoundland reminded us of that time. It reminded us of how kind we were to each other, and so there was something that really resonated with us about the story.
It's interesting that what you just said, it resonates with me, that the boundaries went down, that your morning commute going to and from work, whatever, you just don't touch me, get out of my way, tourists pointing their fingers in your faces. And then you've got a whole town of people here that just say, screw it, let's let all these people in, they have nowhere to go, they've been on a plane for hours and don't know when they will ever get back on, if they will anytime soon. So yeah, it's a nice story to tell. And then it did a run in Toronto, right?
Yeah, so it was originally workshopped in Toronto, and then we took it to Connecticut. We did a presentation
Connecticut,
here.
really?
Yeah, at Goodspeed festivals. And then we did the first production with these guys, with almost all of these guys, in San Diego, which was a co-production with Seattle Rep, La Jolla Playhouse and Seattle Rep. We took it to Washington, D.C. We took it back to Gander for 2 benefit concerts where all the proceeds went back to local charities, which was our way of giving back to the community there. And then took it to Toronto for a full production, and now we're here on Broadway.
Wow.
We've been on a tour for a long time.
Yes.
Right. So I was going to ask, Kelly and Ian, the two of you, how did you get attached to the show in the first place?
Go ahead, musical genius.
I was working at the Fifth Avenue Theater, which is a theater in Seattle that does a lot of development of new musicals. And at that point, I'd met David and Irene, and we had a waffle breakfast that was the beginning of our relationship. It was fantastic. We decided if we could eat breakfast together, we could certainly make music together. And that was in advance of the workshop. That was when Kelly first worked on the material, and Chris Ashley, our director. And they've been stuck with me ever since.
I actually saw their workshop that they did in Goodspeed, is when we first met. I was working on another show, and we were neighbors. Our houses were next door to each other, because you all sort of live, all the writers and collaborators who live in a home together for 2 weeks, which is really interesting. And so we'd see each other. Well, all of a sudden you feel like you're at camp again with people you don't know that well, but you're waking up in your pajamas, and you're I'm gonna brush my teeth. It's all inclusive.
Special.
So I saw the show there, and then I thought the show was very special, and I particularly, think these two are really, really special. We had a lot of fun. And then Chris Ashley called me, and I had worked with him prior, and he said, "Hey, I'm working on this show called Come From Away," and I was like, "I know Come From Away." I was so thrilled. So yeah, that's how that happened.
So, and you're the musical staging, which is that different from choreographer?
It's funny, that question comes up a lot. It is and it isn't. I mean, any sort of musical staging to music has choreography in it. And I think the misconception is that choreography is just dance, real dance, classical dance that we're used to seeing, like West Side Story would feel like a big dance show. And I think choreography over the last 10 years has changed into something else. And a lot of time, moving furniture can be just as much choreography as it is doing a triple turn. So, and I think there's a little bit of both. They're really stoked about the furniture. They're really happy about it. Now, but you just blew it, because everybody thinks you dance beautifully in the show. I get that a lot. Well, listen, we worked on it together, but yeah, there is dance in the show, and then there's also lots of there's big transitions that happen in the show that are choreographed within an inch of their life. So that's sort of, if that helps.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I was going to ask about that. That the cast here is, we'll say, an experienced cast. It is not a bunch of college grad, stay up all night, whatever, burning the candle at both ends. You guys are responsible. You've honed your craft. Have you?
Well done.
Yes. Wow. Have you had to tailor, or I guess, how was the choreography influenced for this particular set of individuals for this particular show?
They're laughing already. I haven't even said anything, and they're cracking up. Well, let's go the professional route first, shall we? Okay, so
First.
I would say, in all honesty, it was really important that this story feel very true to Newfoundland and to these people that we are representing. So that was the basis. So, and they are real people. Newfoundland is not filled with professional ballet dancers or jazz classically trained dancers. So it was finding that movement first, and then it was working with these guys to find what they do best, highlight that, and then expand on it. And hours and hours and hours of rehearsal, and lots of hard work. I mean, that's truly, right? Yeah. That's what we did.
It's really.
You don't want to know about the trial and error part. That was a long time ago. That was ages ago.
What Kelly and Chris have done, for anyone who hasn't seen the show, like, for Irene and I, seeing it come to life is really amazing, because we wanted to tell so many stories. What these guys do on stage is switch from character to character on a dime, switch from place to place, using only 12 chairs and 2 tables. And so there's a lot of moving furniture that is choreographed there, and it's this magic trick that we never get tired of. It's immediately a bus, immediately an airplane, immediately a Legion Hall, and the characters are switching on a dime. It's really it's fun for us to watch, and we've seen it a million times.
Yeah, I enjoy that. Now that you mention it again, it's very seamless, and you can go back, cut back, and you're creating individual scenes without ever changing the set. I mean, the set itself is fixed. It's a one-act set on Broadway, which is very rare. But I want to get Ian. I'm confused about musical supervisor, musical arrangements, but then David and Irene, you both are credited with music as well. So how did the music collaboration happen, and how do these credits work?
It's confusing for every show and every music department. But David and Irene definitely, they wrote the show. They created the story. They decided who would sing when and what they would sing. And I always think of my job as the arranger or music supervisor to get in the trenches with them, help to flesh out specific moments based on the work that Kelly's doing, based on what Chris is doing, taking the words and the music that they wrote, adding even more texture, putting things in the right keys for various singers, various moments, sometimes extending things, shortening things. We have a group of 12 phenomenal actor-singers. It's not your traditional group of even spread of voices. It's very much a unique group of singers, and I think we had a great time in the room figuring out what the vocal arrangements are, which are like which notes each person sings, and really creating a score that lives on them. So I'd say Dave and Irene came to us with like the ground plans, the foundation, and then our job sort of alongside with Chris and Kelly, just like they put it on stage. I focused on sort of coloring in and filling out what was already there, which was just a great baseline to build from, and working really closely with this group of people and figuring out where do they live, what notes do they sing the best, stylistically, what do they do the best. I think something that's really special about this show, and I'll be forever grateful to, these are like 12 principal actors who should all be singing solos nonstop on a Broadway stage. What makes this show unique is you have these 12 people coming together to form an ensemble, very representative of what happened in Newfoundland on that day. All these people coming from all over the world, and they are singing together, and we are feeling that power of 12 really strong performers becoming one, and sometimes representing 15,000. So
and then beyond just the vocals, the music of the show, the band, Ian leads our amazing band on stage, which represents Newfoundland music. I grew up on that, and
you get a bell run in there.
We got
very impressive. Yeah,
bell run, fiddles, accordions, bouzouki.
The guy that plays over pipes? 22 different tin whistles, Irish flute, and pipes.
Yeah, it's really this. It's this traditional, authentic music, but you put it on a Broadway stage, and it feels unique and new, and like we've seen a lot of shows, and we've never seen something like this before. So and then we layer on top of that world music on top of it to sort of create this musical metaphor of people coming from all over the place, and contrasting, fiddles from Newfoundland versus fiddles from Texas, or hand drums, barons from Newfoundland versus hand drums from Africa, and creating something that's this layered metaphor for being stronger together and coming together. And Ian's been responsible for the arrangements of that, and leading it, and learning how to play button accordion as well.
Those were fun days.
Those were fun
when
days.
He was learning the accordion.
I like it.
It was all the time.
Kelly would come to Ian, stop.
Please.
Trying to stage a number. But I'm trying to learn this accordion.
I like at the end of the curtain call, the drummer runs on stage. He's like, "Hey guys, what's going on?" So the people, all 12, the cast members, you are all phenomenal. I want you to just take a moment and introduce yourselves. And Kendra, why don't you start?
Hi, my name is Kendra Kassebaum. Hi, I'm Rodney Hicks.
I'm Sharon Wheatley.
I'm Lee MacDougall.
I'm Jenn Colella.
I'm Joel Hatch.
Caesar Samayoa.
Hi, Astrid Van Weeren.
Q Smith.
Chad Kimball.
Petrina Bromley.
Hi, thank you. Geno Carr.
Geno's Broadway debut. Thank you.
Yeah, we got a bunch.
Astrid. Oh, raise your hand.
Lee.
Who's debut? Who's debut?
Raise your hand.
Raise your hand.
Yeah.
All the Canadians?
All the Canadians.
Okay. Yeah, so make sure you guys are using the mics. Yeah, good knocks. The cast, Ian, you kept mentioning, like, you had all this cast, and then you were figuring out who sang where and what was best and who can move and who can do a triple pirouette and who can't.
They all can, that's what we learned, right?
Raise your hand if it's your Broadway debut and you can do a triple pirouette. It sounded to me like you were just as you were telling the story a second ago, that the story, along with the music and the books and everything, and whatever that was, and the cast was, and the cast came with the show. Like, how did the casting work? I mean, how did you find these people and then say, oh, let's figure out what we can sing with them? Usually it's the reverse, right?
I always think it's interesting the first time you cast a new musical, because that was really the first time we were all in the room together to even have conversations about how are we going to do this with 12 people? What do they need to do? Kelly has a specific list of needs.
Why'd you decide on 12?
We started, I think...
It didn't start out at 12. It went back and forth a couple times, and we ended on 12, right?
It was 14 initially when we first started, and I think that partly, we're trying to tell, so many stories, and we're Canadian, and there's a very Canadian ethos of like, well, I got a truck and a church, let's put on a show, and so we figured we could probably afford 12 people, maybe.
Yeah.
But also, there's something really, wonderful about 12 people portraying all of these people. Every one of them plays a local and a come from away. There's something that's sort of there's this great metaphor underneath, which is that we're all the same underneath it all. And so there's something about just casting it and having people play multiple parts that underlines that.
So did you cast based on overall look, or like and pirouette and singing ability? I mean,
It all started with the dancing.
Everybody bring your tap sheet.
Dancing first, anything else.
Everything else is secondary. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think for me, a lot of it came out immediately. The first song that they would sing is Welcome to the Rock, and Ian would say, so you can count us in. And then just seeing how at ease they were with, counting in, or if they were like, oh, me, or what, you know what I mean? Like, it just, that told me a lot. I don't know about you guys, but because we were kind of like in the dark a little bit, being like, we don't really know what we need. We kind of know how many we need. We kind of know ages, but that can switch. And so, there was nothing really solid except for a sense of being willing to play, and a sense of sort of a selflessness, like an openness.
We knew we were forming an ensemble, so
yes,
it was important to find a group of really strong actors that we knew would be willing to play well together.
And then the essence of some of the characters of the real life people that that were telling the story too. I think not that they had to be a doppelganger or anything like that, but just the essence of who that person is, and be able to sort of embrace that and embody it.
And that's tricky sometimes, because all of the characters on stage are amalgamations and composites. We've to tell that many stories in such a short a time, we've had to sort of compress these stories, compress these characters. So often we're seeing these friends that we made out in Newfoundland, and we're trying to represent 3 of them through one person. And while we're not doing a documentary, we're still trying to find who's going to represent them properly.
The most compelling stories. Yeah, there's one that really stands out for me. Jenn plays this character, Captain Beverly Bass, right, who is the first female pilot to ever make captain in American Airlines. Just happened to be piloting one of these 38 planes that landed in Gander. And one of my favorite songs in the show is actually her song singing about this. So, Jenn, would you mind spontaneously, we didn't rehearse this at all, singing this for us here? Thank you.
My parents must have thought they had a crazy kid, 'cause I was one of those kids who always knew what I wanted. They took me down to the airport To see all the planes depart and watching them fly, something inside of me was starting. I was 8 when I told them that I'd be a pilot. But I was too young and too short, and there were no female captains. And my dad said, be patient. He said, just see what happens. But I took my first lesson, came down from the sky, and told my father I'd fly for the rest of my life. And I got my first job flying for a mortician in a tiny Bonanza, just a corpse and me, $5 an hour. For flying dead bodies, I had to climb over their faces just to get to my seat. Then suddenly the wheels lift off, the ground is falling backwards. I am suddenly alive. Suddenly I'm in the cockpit. Suddenly everything's changed. Suddenly I'm not too young or too short, and the passengers in the back don't complain. Suddenly I'm flying company charters. Suddenly everything's high. Suddenly there's nothing in between me and the sky. American Airlines had the prettiest planes, so I applied as a flight engineer. But the World War II pilots, they all complained. They said girls shouldn't be in the cockpit. Hey lady, hey baby, hey, why don't you grab us a drink? And the flight attendants weren't my friends back then, and they said, are you better than us, do you think? But I kept getting hired, and the World War II crew, they retired, and the girls all thought much higher of me. 1986, the first female American captain in history. Suddenly I'm in the cockpit. Suddenly I've got my wings. Suddenly all of those pilots protesting me, well, they can get their own drinks. Suddenly there's no one saying stay grounded, looking down, passing them by. Suddenly there's nothing in between me and the sky. Suddenly I've got an all-female crew. The news caught and made headlines across the world. Suddenly it stopped. No one's saying you can't, or you won't, or you know you're not anything, 'cause you're a girl. Suddenly I'm getting married, and we're putting pins on the map where we've flown. Suddenly I am a mother, and suddenly shocked at how much they've grown. Suddenly I'm wondering how my parents would feel seeing me teaching men to be pilots, 'cause suddenly I am a senior instructor, and somehow I'm 51. Suddenly I'm flying Paris to Dallas, across the Atlantic, and feeling calm, when suddenly someone on air-to-air traffic says at 8:46 there's been a terrorist action, and the one thing I loved more than anything was used as the bomb. Suddenly I'm in a hotel. Suddenly something has died. Suddenly there's something in between me and the sky.
So I've been on stage with Broadway performances now. That's pretty cool. Yeah, yay me. The characters that you guys found and discovered, I mean, Captain Beverly, right? Captain Bass, just one of many amazing things. There was also, I mean, she's from, I guess her home base is from Texas, and then there's also the Texan woman who fell in love with the British man because they happened to be on the same plane, and then there was another person who actually had, played by Q, who has a son that was a volunteer firefighter or an actual
Firefighter.
Actual firefighter that, can we give it, I guess, yeah, lost his life in 9/11. So like you were spending the whole show wondering what happened to your son. All these characters that you found, is there anybody that you have left out that you wish you could have told their story?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as much as possible, we amalgamated as many things as we could. I mean, David always talks about how, you know, the pharmacist, for instance, at the Shoppers Drug Mart was just all night trying to figure out how to refill people's prescriptions. And we had a whole scene at one point, but now it's just down to one line in the town's scene where they say Martin O'Brien, or no, it's not Martin.
Dr. O'Brien
Dr.
is filling
O'Brien.
pharmacies prescriptions from around the world. We tried to keep every single story we could in there. There's a story about the air traffic controllers who had nothing to do, so they just made chili nonstop.
Right.
And that used to be more fleshed out, and now it's just one of our characters coming out saying, "Bonnie, I made some chili." But what's amazing is when the people actually come. We've had air traffic controllers come, and they're like, "You got in the chili!"
Yes, we did.
You know, and so we tried to
Really
get
tried.
every
Yeah.
single story we possibly could in there, even if it's just a little line.
And the one character that I guess talking about her human children and her real children at the beginning, obviously like against security orders, right? Like she was technically not allowed to by the FAA, went into the cargo hold and found all these animals, caught cats and dogs and even bonobo chimps that were stuck in the cargo hold that weren't allowed to come off the plane. Because people, when they got off, were only allowed to take their carry-ons. That was it.
Yeah.
So their cargo, including pets, were stuck on planes. Other than, like, is there anything along those lines that just didn't make it in, or that like you wish you could have fleshed out more? Like, why cut it down to 100 minutes in the first place?
Well, so it was originally longer. The first draft that we wrote was about 5 hours long. They still hadn't got off the plane, so like we had a lot to do. But
through all the movies,
yeah.
Titanic 5 times.
Right. I think, I mean, and there were stories. Like there's this wonderful story about a local who was sitting down by the water, and one of the not a local, I come from away, who was sitting down there, and one of the locals came up and said, "Are you okay?" And they said, I could use a cup of coffee. I just really miss my dog." And the local went away and came back with a cup of coffee and their dog, and was like, "Here, if you need some dog time," you know. And like there's some just amazing stories, and we just couldn't fit them all in. Part of the reason we kept it compact so much, we originally had an intermission, and then one of our producers, we've got this amazing producing team, Junkyard Dog Productions, and they actually said to us that there was no chance during it for anyone from the town, anyone from away, to like step out of the moment and, you know, have a drink and go to the bathroom and say, "How do you think it's going?" "I don't know. How do you think it's going?" Right? So we wanted to really take the audience into that experience with us, and it's something that you start at the beginning and it doesn't let up until the end, and so we just had to fit every story we could in there.
Yeah, I commented on that with a friend I went with to see the show, and because as soon as the lights go down, usually with your traditional show, you've got the overture, and then the curtain stays down, and you're like, all right, getting settled. Everyone's pulling out their cell phones and switching them to airplane mode and everything. No pun intended. But in this show, like lights go down, and it's like 3 beats, and then boom, everyone's on stage, and they kick off "Welcome to the Rock," and I'm just like, okay, here I go. And you're right, it was just nonstop. Even the dialogue is kept up the same pace that the songs keep up, and it's very touching so kudos to that. No question there, just making a very great statement. So throwing it to the cast a little bit, of all the characters that you portray, have any of you met your actual people that you do? Y'all have? Who's
Captain Beverly Bass and I are good friends. She's
Are you
seen
really?
the show just over 60 times. She's been to all of the cities. She brought 90 female pilots to our opening in Toronto, 50 female pilots in Seattle. And she and Tom, her husband, have been very present throughout the whole experience. So it's been cool to get to know her.
Wow. Anybody else? You guys keep in touch?
Nick and Diane, who Lee MacDougall and I portray, is the British oil executive and the Texas they call her a housewife, but she's elevated. She was actually a buyer. She had like a real career. But they are the ones who met, and Nick and Diane actually really did marry in real life, and they've seen the show. They're in competition with Beverly. They're behind, they'll tell you. But Beverly also gets free airfare.
Right.
So there's that. So, but they've come quite a bit. They're very lovely. We caught them the other day out signing autographs in the autograph. It's a full experience for them. For all the characters, it's really wonderful. I was like, hey, get out of here.
This is mine.
My character is a composite of two women, and representing a lot of women in Gander. My main character is Beulah Davis, who is a combination of Beulah Cooper and Diane Davis, and I got to meet them when we went to Gander to do our 2 concerts there at the world's largest walk-in refrigerator. And we had a reception beforehand, before they even saw the show. We met them, and Beulah and I were wearing almost the exact same outfit. So that was a nice confirmation that we were, and Diane was actually wearing exactly the same red that was in both of our outfits. So the 3 of us had a good giggle about that. And they're incredible women and Facebook friends, and they've been now to New York, and they were there for our opening. We got to bring all our people, our doppelgangers, our partners onto stage with us, and they got to experience that bow and all that love that we get every night after the show coming at us. We got to share that with them, so that was pretty incredible.
Interesting. All right,
Chad and I both play a couple. We're a couple that are both named Kevin in the show. And after the La Jolla run, I'm sitting and checking my email, and I see one of the emails pop up and says, "My name's Kevin, and I hear you're playing me in a musical." And we've become amazing friends, and we've all met, and it's quite something.
My Kevin was more involved in the process. They did break up, and so, but he was there for the La Jolla opening. I don't think Kevin J was, but he wasn't. But they came to Seattle, both of them. Just the facts, guys. I'm giving you a timeline here. But Kevin T, my Kevin, I have nothing against you. Wrote a book called Channel of Your Peace. So he was just here, actually. He just left the other day. We had dinner, and he's hoping to get his book out there called Channel of Your Peace. That's
Channel of Peace.
Channel of Peace? Oh, obviously I've read it. Jeez, I'm just going to not say anything.
My Kevin's book will be out soon, too.
And Robin, his new assistant, his book will be out after theirs.
Let me pause for 1 second. If anybody has audience questions, we only have 1 mic this time, unfortunately, because of all these mics. So everyone line up over here while we continue our stories. All right. Rodney, you going to say something?
Well, he's
are you good?
I met Claude Elliott, the mayor of Gander, in Seattle. And I was a little nervous the first time I met him, and I said, I don't think I'm a very, precise duplicate of you. He said, well, you don't have hair. But he said, just so you tell the story right, that's all I care about. And he was great. He was just, wonderful, and he's been a big supporter of the show.
Yeah, and Q, I'm curious about your connection, because for someone who actually lost somebody during all this, is it hard for her, or is this more of an in memoriam of what she went through, or did she prefer to see it or not see it, or do you know it all?
Well, our writers have actually more experience. They've actually been to her home and met her entire family. I've met her twice, and we all met her, actually, and she loved the show. She loved the show, and on opening night, she gave me a replicate of Kevin's badge with his face on it, a relic, and it was so special. And she and I, we're both pretty spiritual people. We have a strong faith, and we know that, there's always a sunnier side to things. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, she went through this tragic situation, and she found so much hope and peace in the show, and she's thankful. She's thankful for it.
That's nice. Yeah, question?
Hey there, my name's Ashley, and I've actually already seen the show. Loved it. Can't stop talking about it. Already have tickets to see it again. Yeah. Fabulous. So I've been sitting here trying to think of what I would ask you, and I keep going back to exactly how much toilet paper did they bring to the Lions Club?
Like the quote we got was enough to last a year for Gander Academy. It was actually, where did they drop it off in real life? Because I know we switched things around because it's not a documentary, it's a piece of theater, so we tried to, amalgamate. It was the Lions Club. That's what you said.
So Janice, you should explain that line.
Oh, yes, sure,
So you get a little background.
Right, so I play a reporter who's, it's her first day on the job when all of this is happening. And so her job was to kind of get the information out there, what people need and everything. And she just, put out there that we just need a little toilet paper over the Lions Club if you got any extra. And so she's back on the air saying, for the love of God, stop bringing toilet paper to the Lions Club. So that's where that comes from.
And it really happened.
Yes.
Hey, I'm Joanna, and I'm Canadian, so I'm so excited to see a story about Canada, but also curious about how you opened in Toronto and how you got your start in Toronto and then came to New York, because that feels almost like the opposite of shows usually opening broadly here and then going on the road.
Yeah, no, it is actually, yeah.
So we started at Sheridan College with something called the Canadian Music Theatre Project. So all of these experienced actors are having to play characters that were originally based on students. We worked with students there and also at Goodspeed Musicals. And students have a lot of energy and they jump from thing to thing and they're happy to move chairs. And so these guys have to put up with a show that was based on that. I think what we've learned along the way is that as Canadians ourselves, it's definitely a this wonderful Canadian story that we feel a lot of pride in. There was 200 planes diverted across the country, not only to Gander, but also out on the West Coast. And all over the place. But it's also, as New Yorkers, it's people who are here in New York, there's this sense that it's an American story as well. It's an additional memory to what happened on 9/11, and everyone we've talked to, Hannah's family, but also, when we were in Washington, D.C., we spoke to a lot of the survivors and the survivors' families there. We had our first preview was for the FDNY Foundation here, and what they told us was that what happened in Gander was a tribute to the people that they lost, that it was not a replacement memory, but an additional memory and this glimmer of hope on such a tragic day. So I think it's important for them. And beyond that, what we've realized is that it's really an international story. It was something that happened to the world at the same time, and that we all had reactions to it wherever you were from, and that sort of coalesced for us in the story of Gander because so many people were from around the world. So it expanded beyond there. We've also had an amazing team who's supported the show, this little Canadian show, and has brought it to the world. And we've been really blessed to be able to share this with as many people as possible. We have a team that I think originally wasn't sure whether this was a Broadway show, but knew that it was an important story to tell, and has supported it all along the way.
And one of the gifts that I think our producers gave us, often shows are, go as quickly as possible to get to New York. They gave us the gift of time and multiple productions, and we didn't just rush to New York. The goal was not just to have a Broadway show, but to really explore this story and tell it in the most truthful, honoring, and effective way. And I think playing Canada, playing La Jolla, playing Seattle, playing DC, which was directly impacted by 9/11, all these different cities, and listening to those audiences helped all of us hone everything from the writing to the staging to the music to the production.
And it gave us a real journey, a familial journey of coming together amongst ourselves and this bond that we have,
Thank you.
So other than the rent, did anything change about the show going from Toronto to New York?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
A lot.
mean, we added a new song.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yes.
What was new?
Hannah's song.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
The song is new.
Expanded, yes.
We continued to tweak and tighten and cut it. It's funny, working with the same team over so many cities, within the theater, it felt very safe. We're all just doing what we do. We're just making the show, as good as we possibly could. It was only, when you go out the door that you're like, oh my God, it's Broadway. What's going on?
Right. Well, and I feel like one of the things that changed with the show is that you guys kept interviewing people and they kept meeting people. That's why we got a new song. And it's such a credit to them as writers. Though they could have made up phenomenal stories. They were so committed to capturing the truth, and once they spent a good amount of time with Hannah, suddenly a song flowed out of them, and we had that. So it's been an interesting process.
I'd have to add, too, that our director, Chris Ashley, pushed all of us at every moment relentlessly.
Relentlessly.
Never stopped. Yep. To the very last second before we
think last
opened.
night
on
I
the-
actually got a
yeah,
I blocked his email.
But yeah, he really had such a good insight to what you guys wanted, and he sort of set us all on the right path. And then he just wouldn't accept anything that was just slightly undercooked. Sometimes, you know, when you're really on a tight schedule and you got to open something, it's easy to go, you know what, that's fine. Let's keep going. It's working. But that wasn't ever acceptable. We always had to go deeper, which I think is, you know, why we're up here. Because I think we've done something that we're proud of, and that we took a long, long time to cultivate.
Absolutely. All right. To wrap up here, after people see the show, what's the one thing that you hope people take away with them when they leave?
There's a Mr. Rogers quote that we like to talk about, which is that when his mom said, when he saw something scary on TV, his mother used to tell him, if you see something scary, always look for the helpers. There's always goodness in the world. There's always, and that often doesn't get the focus, and it feels particularly right now when we're often feeling divided and against each other. It's important to look for stories that bring us together, to focus on the people who are helping. There's always more helpers than there are people who are perpetrating these acts. And it feels important to find, stick in your search bar every day and find those things that remind us that there's goodness in the world. That's what I keep coming back to.
Nice.
Yeah, I think about at the end of the year, last year, 2016, there was that video that was put together because everyone was like, see you later 2016, but there was like, oh, but like Google did this thing where it was like, P.S., but this happened in 2016, and we've accomplished this, and just sort of, I mean, it sounds really trite to say look on the bright side, but it's not, it's more where you choose to put your energy and your focus, and I think that does affect what you put out into the world. I do. And so it's much the same thing.
Yeah, it's been good for us to tell the story and be able to live in the story. I think it's been good for all of us to be celebrating these people out in Newfoundland, to be celebrating the goodness that they created and the friendships that they created. It feels like every day we're living in the shadow of something terrible, and it feels important to find the pockets of good.
Well said. Yes? Yeah.
I just want to add, I'm actually from Newfoundland myself, and as a member of the cast on a very personal level to be involved with this show, people come to me all the time after the show who have come from Newfoundland to see it, and the kind of pride that happens and the smiles and the pleasure on people's faces just gives me an extra added bonus of joy in this show because we don't toot our horns enough in Canada and especially in Newfoundland. So for me, I get that extra joy on top of what they're talking about.
Well, the soundtrack came out yesterday, yeah?
Today.
Today is our
day.
Physically today. I think it was a digital download yesterday.
Yeah.
I was looking for it on Google Play Music. All right.
Dude.
Thank you. Gerald Schoenfeld, did I say that right? The Gerald Schoenfeld Theater, 236 West 45th. We come from away on Twitter and Instagram. We come from away.com. Everybody at Google here, don't forget our ticket discount. Please see the show. Help me give them another round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, nice.
Excellent. Great.